Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Present. Hook. Order. Hook. Hooray. Miss.
On behalf of Bank of America and our great partners at Keystone Challenge Fund, it is with heartfelt gratitude that we present this key and this home.
Jane Waters Thomas with PGTV here at the 3rd Annual Warriors for Freedom and Military Order of the Purple Heart Golf Invitational, and here are some sights and sounds of this year's event. With me is one of our event sponsors, John Friend, who is with Modern Woodmen of America. John, what got you involved in this event?
Well, I just think it's a great cause, of course, wounded veterans and veterans in general, and it's so close to Veterans Day. And your persuasion, Jane, of course. But at Modern Woodmen, we try to give back to the communities. We are a not-for-profit organization. And this is how we try to make a difference.
Outstanding. And your company has quite a history of being involved in just really things that are patriotic and support America and really celebrate the importance of patriotism.
Absolutely. We were founded in 1883, so we have quite a track record. And you know, we operate not-for-profit, and this is what we do. We contribute to a lot of different things, and this is, again, how we try to make a difference.
John, how would you encourage other companies to get involved in the Military Order of the Purple Heart Golf Invitational?
I think you should just, my advice to other organizations and other companies would be to prioritize your goals. And I don't think there's anything more important than this. It just doesn't get any more important. We have to take care of the people that take care of us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sponsoring the 3rd Annual Military Order of the Purple Heart Golf Invitational. Standing with me on the course right now are two guys that are the very reason that we are here, Sergeant Major Cropper and Colonel Selvage.
Well, thank you, Jane. This is quite a treat. This is my good friend, Sergeant Major Mick Cropper of the Marine Corps. He and I served together about 35 years ago in Okinawa, Japan. We played golf in the Philippines and Okinawa and the States, and so we both ended up in Lakeland. But he's just one of the many veterans out here today that are enjoying us, and thanks to you and your organization for putting this together.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. And Mr. Cropper today, retired, right? What brings you out to do this tournament every year?
It's for the veterans. Colonel pays for us. It's his treat, and as well it should be. And it's a great opportunity to come out and honor all the veterans who have served and are serving today.
Well, we are thankful for both of you for a million reasons, but definitely for coming out and supporting this event. Thank you. With me right now is retired Navy Captain Manny, who is with Rooms to Go. Welcome.
Yes, we are. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Manny, why do you guys participate in this particular golf tournament?
This is special because it's very dear to our veterans, and we have plenty of veterans in Rooms to Go, and we just want to be part of the good thing.
Well, you guys have two teams out here and were of tremendous support last year, this year. This is our third annual Military Order of the Purple Heart Golf Invitational. Will you be with us again next year?
God willing, yes. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you.
I'm sitting with Cleveland Heights Golf Course golf pro Dante, and there is not another man that is more important than Dante on this course right now. Dante, tell me a little bit about the history of this particular event and why it's so important to what you do.
Well, for one thing, it supports people that support us. And we have been doing this now for 3 years, and every year it touches your heart when you come here and you see people that have given so much, and then they're still giving. They're here giving of their time, so they never stop. You know, they're the type of people you want to be around in life.
Absolutely, and as we've been talking with golfers on the course today, everybody is loving the golf course. Now, the weather is definitely pretty brilliant today and helpful, but the golf course is just absolutely beautiful, and that's due to staff and all of your efforts. Tell us a little bit about the staff at Cleveland Heights Golf Course.
Well, we have about 45 total staff between the maintenance crew and the golf operations staff. The majority of my staff is senior citizens, retired people. We do have some younger gentlemen. The oldest gentleman I have is 96 years old. He's one of my cart attendants, and every year he asks me at his birthday, please don't take my job away. He's a past military veteran, and unfortunately we just had to retire someone just last month, Jerry Parker. He was 93, and he just had to retire from being a cart attendant. Now, one of the things about Jerry was a pilot. He actually flew fighter pilot missions for cover for MacArthur. If you can imagine that, when MacArthur flew somewhere in his B-52, here come Jerry along and to have a gentleman like that here on staff, and Mickey, who's playing in the golf tournament today, Bill Averett, all these guys are past military. They work for me, dedicate many volunteer hours to make this a success, and I got to thank my staff for all they do, because I certainly couldn't do it by myself.
Well, and it shows that you guys do a tremendous job, and how fun that you're able to do an event that really celebrates a very important part of their life.
Exactly, and some of them are Purple Heart recipients, and so it's like we honor them. It's not about us or the golf course or what we do. We're here to serve them. They deserve our service. And so we're very happy to do this for them, and whatever it takes. I mean, that's been my motto. That's always been how I've dealt with my staff and how I've dealt with dealing with this tournament. I know there's always a lot of roller coaster ride in making one of these events happen, and sometimes anxiety gets high. But I tell everybody, by the time it's time to tee off, everything will be just fine. And just like today, perfect day. Everybody's having fun. The golfers are out there. Everybody got a Purple Heart ball today, so you got to love that. It's just a tremendous event. We're very happy how it's had.
Now, next year, this event date will change a little bit, and I know the committee talked about changing that date to a summer date.
Yeah, the reason why we did that is two reasons. This time of the year, we're pretty much flooded with tournaments, and it also happens to be the time of the year when college football is going on. So a lot of golfers are college football nuts, and it's hard getting them to play multiple events. By moving this to in August, we're going to have it on a Saturday morning, August 8th. It's going to be an 8 a.m. shotgun, and it's going to be right after Purple Heart Day, the day after. So it's a better time to have it, and I do believe that I would love to see this event double in size, and that'll be the goal for, we have, 10 months to get it together.
We have 10 months to get it together, and I know we're going to. Thank you so much, Dante, for all that you do for the Military Order of the Purple Heart Golf Invitational. It's a big event. We're on the course with John, who's going to tell us all about why he plays in the Military Order of the Purple Heart Golf Invitational, and this is our third one. Have you played in this before?
Never have. Never played here before.
Never have. Awesome. So what brought you out today?
Well, I received an invitation from Jay Reardon, who's our team captain, about playing in this tournament, and because I'm a veteran, my dad was a Purple Heart recipient.
Wonderful. And clearly Air Force?
Yes, I'm retired Air Force.
Wonderful. So what would you give as a word of encouragement for other veterans to get involved in this particular event?
Well, when I see a lot of times the TV commercials and the interviews with people and some of the news stories about veterans that are injured in war, Afghanistan, Iraq, and all those different places across the seas, it's quite touching. It's quite moving. And they need all the assistance they can get. I realize they get help from the VA, but there's a lot of things over and above the help that the government can give them that they need.
That's right, and this event definitely supports those families and those veterans with the proceeds that are earned here, and we want to thank you for coming out and supporting our veterans today.
Thank you very much.
I'm standing here with Robert from Florida Engineering, who has on a beautiful Marine shirt, and of course this is an event that's all about supporting our veterans. So what brought you out to play golf with us today?
Well, I enjoy golf, and I've been working really hard, and when I heard about this event, I want to at least participate in it.
Wonderful. Would you encourage others to come out and participate at this event held at Cleveland Heights?
Oh yeah, Cleveland Heights is a very good course for a public course. I like it. We've played here a lot, and I'm going to play next year.
Wonderful. And you guys being Florida Engineering, you get out and do some golf on Friday afternoon. That can't be a bad thing, right?
Not a bad thing. Normally it's Saturday or Sunday, and to play golf on a Friday is just a wonderful thing.
Great. Well, we are through.
Too.
It is a beautiful day. This weather turned out absolutely gorgeous. We ordered that for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming out.
Okay, bye now.
Bye-bye. That's going to wrap up the 3rd annual Warriors for Freedom and Military Order of the Purple Heart Golf Invitational. Next year, we want to see you out here with your golf shoes on and your tees ready so that you too can be supporting our veterans and all of our heroes right here in Polk County at the Cleveland Heights Golf Course.
This is a very special place to most of us. As you look around this park, you'll see memorials and remembrances for law enforcement, those who have lost their lives in the line of duty protecting us, firefighters, memorial behind us, with the names of those firefighters in Polk County who have lost their lives in the line of duty, the Veterans Memorials here. And I would point out that starting Monday, we will begin construction of our World War II memorial over here in this small parking lot to my right, your left. And drop by in the next couple weeks and see as that develops. They will be the centerpiece of this park. And we will have a dedication ceremony on the 7th of December, Pearl Harbor Day, at 8 o'clock. About the time of the attack, and we want you all to be here if you can make it. I know it's early, but it will be a great time. I would like for all of you to stand now for the, we'll have a flag presentation and raising of the colors. Each year, Woodman's of the World provides us with flags for our flagpole, both here and with the Mills Memorial to my right. And remain standing for the presentation of the colors by the Florida Southern College ROTC Color Guard, the national anthem to be sung by Christian Brock, and the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would all stand and remove your hats, thank you.
Polk. Please, Zach.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free? and the home of the brave.
Order.
If you join me in the pledge, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'd remain standing for the invocation.
Let us pray. Eternal Father, from its inception you have blessed and you have guided and protected our native land, the United States of America. Through your able assistance and your profound wisdom, our founding fathers realized the need for citizens to bear arms to honor, protect, and defend the freedoms endowed by you, our Creator, and clearly articulated by our forefathers and founders in the Constitution of the United States. We thank you today for the multiplied thousands of men and women who have served in our armed forces through their commitment, their dedication, their promise, and their loyalty to protect our citizenry and defend our country from both foreign and domestic enemies. May we ask your richest and generous blessings for our protection for all of our men, women serving in uniform as our nation continues our ongoing efforts to foster domestic and global peace. We ask of you today that you will bless the memories of all our fallen comrades in uniform who have paid the ultimate sacrifice with their lives in our continued quest for freedom, as well as their memories of all veterans who are now deceased. May we ask also for your divine blessings on all veterans everywhere today, especially our homeless and our disabled veterans. And I pray that all Americans will extend a hand of gratitude to our veterans for their honorable and distinguished service to the land that we love and cherish, the United States of America. As we honor our service personnel and celebrate the service and memories of all our veterans, we are again reminded that the freedoms that we enjoy today are the result of the superb price that they have paid and the extraordinary sacrifice they have made for our great nation. Thank you, Father, for hearing our prayer, and we thank you, veterans, for your service to our country. Amen.
Colors. Forward. March.
You may be seated. How about a hand for Kristen? Didn't she do a great job on the national anthem? We have with us the mayor of Lakeland, who's going to welcome you all on behalf of the city, and it's my privilege to welcome and bring forward the Honorable Mayor of Lakeland, Mayor Howard Wiggs. Howard?
Thank you. And this is a great day God's given us. This is wonderful. And this park, of course we had our firefighters and police officers to begin with, but I think it was then a dream of Gary's and Don's to make this into a place where we want all of our veterans, our entire community to rally around. And this is on its way to being a real destination place in our community. And on behalf of the city, I want to welcome all of you. It's great that you've turned out, that you recognize the importance of this day, and I just have a few remarks. Although war and war's experiences are complex and challenging, Veterans Day is not. Veterans Day is simple. It is intended to honor all military personnel who have served our country. It is to thank those who sacrifice so much in defense of freedom, who set an example of honor and decency and courage that the entire world can follow. You who are veterans have demonstrated your patriotism by being a member in some capacity in our military. We understand how very much veterans mean to the well-being and security of our nation. We stand here today, free men and women, because there have been folks like you who have said, I will serve. Our hearts are full of gratitude. You can never be fully repaid for what you've done, but we can try to show and tell you that you are our heroes. And we can say, as Veterans Day was intended, we thank you, we honor you, and we hope that God will bless you and your families. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have some special guests here that I want to recognize. First of all, and most importantly to all of us who have stood on their shoulders, are veterans from World War II. If you're a World War II veteran, would you stand, please? Thank you all. Thank you for your service. Thanks for being here. Thanks for what you did for not only us, but the world. If you're a Korean War vet, would you stand, please? If you're a veteran but none of the above, stand, please. Thank you. Thank you all. I want to also recognize these young people that are out here today. The JROTC cadets from our schools across the county. When the year began, in our county, Polk County, 3,700 young men and women chose to become part of the JROTC programs in the 13 schools that sponsor JROTC. How about a round of applause for these young folks? Thank you for being here. They are our future. We're also honored to have with us Commissioner Jim Moless here from the City of Lakeland, and we also have Commissioner Don Selvage from the city. He's also a Marine, but we won't talk about that. We won't talk about that. So. But again, we're just tickled to have everyone here and all the support that we've gotten, and I'll make a few more comments about that later. But now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. You know, I grew up in Kansas, and my father was a World War II veteran. And when I visit his grave, I look around and I see all of his friends who served from that little community with him. They're all there, and you realize this was a farming community. All these folks came home. Most of them went back to farming, never asked for anything, never talked about it. The things that I learned from my dad, I had to draw out of him because he didn't talk about it. And you think about the sacrifice and commitment that was made by that community and the people that were in it. Well, Polk County has a rich history in a similar fashion of the contributions the people here in Polk County made in support of World War II and the freedoms they secured for us. A couple years ago, we honored JBT Technologies here in this very ceremony. JBT used to be known as Food Manufacturing Corporation, built amphibs during World War II. One of only 2 locations that did that and helped secure the peace in the Pacific. The community participated. Young ladies served as spotters when we thought the Germans might attack. They served as spotters by positioning themselves on top of buildings around the county. And they also participated in many other ways in helping secure that freedom and that victory over Nazism and fascism. But the other thing that happened here in Polk County was we were an aviation mecca in terms of training pilots, both British pilots and American pilots, to fight in World War II. And our guest speaker today was one of those instructors right here in our community who served in that capacity. He wasn't much much older at the time than some of the young people standing here today. And it's my pleasure to bring forward the youngest flight instructor that we can boast right now, who is still as ready and able as ever, Mr. Lon Cooper. Lon?
Thank you very much. Polk County and Lakeland in particular can be extremely proud of their contribution to our success in World War II. And I hope that the recognition of the veterans, both past, present, and future, is helpful in reminding the rest of the people that the freedom that we enjoy today is not created by politicians, it's earned by the Army and maintained by the military. So that we keep it going. In Polk County, there are 3 areas that are particularly important. One was Lakeland Linder Airfield, which at the time it was taken over by the Army. It was called Drain Field. And that was an auxiliary field for MacDill, where they were flying B-17s and B-26 bombers. The other field of importance was in Bartow. After the cadet finished his training and received his commission, he was checked out in the plane that he would fly in combat, which in Bartow was the P-51 Mustang. And we had a lot of those. But I worked out at the field, which is now the baseball field, Tigertown, and that was the Lodwig School of Aeronautics. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of the civilian flying schools. They called them civilian flying schools, but the instructors primarily were in the, I guess you'd call it the National Guard today. It was the Army Air Force Reserve. By placing us in the reserve under Army control, that took us away from the draft board, so that they had to say over what we did and what we did. It was an unusual thing. We wore officers' uniforms, and we were under the control of the MPs and things like that. They made sure we looked nice and dressed properly and conducted ourselves right. Let's go back to 1937 when Hitler started his trip through Europe. Some of our people from the military went over there and found out that the people in Europe didn't have the same ideas about peace that we had. And General Hap Arnold was in charge of the Air Force, which was part of the Army at that time. He recognized that from what was going on in Europe, that it wasn't a question of if, it was just when we would become involved. And he also knew he was an ace in World War I as a fighter pilot. He recognized the importance of the Air Force and what it would be in the next engagement. At that time, the Army was training 500 pilots a year at Kelly Field in San Antonio, Texas. The Army estimated that it would take them 5 years to build another facility at Randolph Field in San Antonio to train 500 more a year. General Arnold realized that that wasn't a practical solution. And so he went to 8 of his World War I buddies that had their own flying schools. And he called them to Washington, D.C., and he explained the situation about what was happening and the need for pilots. And he says, I wonder if you would train our combat pilots for their first stage of flight training, Army primary, which consisted of 60 hours of training. And they said, yes, we can do that. And he says, now, in order to do that, you will have to use your own money and build your own field and your own barracks and all of your facilities. And they said, well, we'll do that too. And he says, and if you do that and we ask you to expand your facilities at your expense, will you do that? And they says, yes, we'll do that. And he says, well, there's only one other small problem. He says, we don't have any money to pay you. So he says, but I'll put in a good word for you in Congress. Well, Congress did agree to pay him later on by 2 votes because we were a conservative nation then, and we were trying to recover from the depression that we were in. And we believed that World War I had been the war to end all wars. And so it was a little hard start. Well, they said, when will we get our first cadets? And he says, in 60 days. So the 8 schools started out and began training the pilots before they had any kind of a contract at all, which they did get, of course, when Congress agreed to pay them. And to make a long story real short, the 8 schools turned into 69 civilian schools. And we trained 200,000 combat pilots in 43, 44, and 45. General Hap Arnold used a resource that would have been totally lost. In the contract schools, most of the instructors were too old for combat, 35 years old and older. And some of them World War I pilots, some of them crop dusters, barnstormers, things like that, but they knew how to fly, and they were excellent instructors. Lodwig School of Aeronautics is the one that was occupied out here at the ball field now. It was one of the original 8 schools. And when it volunteered to take part in the program, it was in Lincoln, Nebraska. It didn't take them long to figure out that it wasn't very practical to fly an open cockpit plane 365 days a year in Lincoln, Nebraska. So they decided to move south. Lakeland was very pleased to have them come here and cooperated 100% because the Depression was on, and they were going to bring a group in to help the economy, which they did. Now, we are unique in the fact that Lakeland is one of the few places where there is still something remaining from that part of the program. We have 3 hangars out there that are still standing, and there is a group that's trying to restore those hangars and maybe make them into a museum so that we'll have something to remember all that. You see a picture of it over there, and if you're really interested, you can look in Facebook and call up Save the Hangars. And hangars is Hangars. If you put the E in the end of it, that's the executioner. But our activity at the field out there was very unique. Many of the instructors that came were from out of town, out of the country, various parts. But the people that took care of the airplanes out there, the mechanics, the people that ran the barracks and the cooks and things like that, they were all local people. And I am sure that those of you that are here from Lakeland have heard sometime about some of your families or something like that being involved in the work out at Lodwig. Our airplanes on the flight line were maintained by a crew that gassed them and parked them and taxied them around and generally took care of the airplanes on the ground. And those were all young ladies, flight line girls, like we had singing for us. And the airplanes at that time, we had an inertia starter, which you inserted a crank up here behind the engine, and you ran the crank, and it's got a flywheel spinning in there real fast. And when you got the speed up on that, you pulled out a handle that connected it to the engine, and then they turned the engine over several times and start the engine. And that worked very well. One person could crank it if you took a long time because it was hard to do. The ratio was 100 to 1 on the flywheel and the crank handle. But, and the line girls would do that. They would crank them for us, but we didn't have any trouble getting help from the cadets. So that worked well. And I'll tell you about our operation at the field. We had as many as 600 students there at one time. There's a picture up here of the field where it shows that we had 225 planes that looked like this. It was this shape of plane, but they weren't painted that fancy color. They were just silver because we needed a lot of them. And this one has the star in the red dot in the star. We got rid of that thing when we got involved with Japan and went to the other emblem with the bars on the side. We didn't want us to get confused about who was where. We had 8 flights. Each flight had a flight commander and a number of instructors, about 20 to 25. Each instructor had 5 students, and we flew in 2 groups. We flew 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. And with the hangars, the 2 hangars that are in line, north and south, we flew 2 flights out of that hangar and 2 flights out of the other hangar. The hangar that sits to the south was the maintenance hangar where we service the airplanes. And for those of you that are pilots, you know there's a 100-hour inspection required on the aircraft. They did a 100-hour inspection on our planes every 50 hours because we were either practicing landings and takeoffs in the first part of our program, or we were doing acrobatics in the second part of the program. We took the cadets from 0. I've taken some of my students for their very first ride in an airplane and graduated them in 60 hours, 10 weeks took to do that. We had to fly them 8 hours before we could before we could solo them. We washed out about 30% of the students. They went on to become navigators, bombardiers, flight engineers, and so forth. Their requirements were very high in performance. I was fortunate. I learned to fly in St. Petersburg as part of the junior college program called CPT. Before the war started, they began training college students to fly with the agreement that if we became involved in war, you would volunteer for the Air Force. Well, of course, we did become involved in Pearl Harbor. And I volunteered like the rest of them, but when I filled out my application, I had asthma when I was growing up, and they wouldn't take me in the Air Force. But they put me in the reserve because I knew how to fly. And so that's where I remained during the war. That's where they assigned me. They paid my way everywhere I went. They sent me to Kelly Field and Randolph Field and so forth, and generally paid me until I started working for the school, and then the school paid me. And I was only 22 at the time, so I was the same age as some of my students. we would fly for a half a day. I said we had flew in 2 groups. We would fly, and every week we would change times. We would fly morning one week, afternoon the next, in order to balance the weather out. And we had quite a few experiences there with the older instructors. I was the youngest one on the field. I was only 22. They called me junior. And I was a junior. Many of them, it was a resource that would have been totally lost without General Arnold, because these people could fly the airplane and fly it well. Just to let you know how the criteria of performance was, when I went to Kelly Field out in Texas for part of my training, there were 385 of us in the class. The Army was trying to help the civilian contract schools find instructors. And so they took 385 of us and sent us through training. 65 of us graduated. I was very fortunate to have had excellent instructors in St. Pete that stressed accuracy and precision. And so I was one of the 65 that finally graduated. Well, when we get down to it, I told you that most of the instructors were older and more experienced. Now, I tried to fly with my students and stay right by the book. I tried not to do anything that they weren't supposed to do. That wasn't always true with some of the other instructors. One evening, as flight was closing down, one of our airplanes came in with a student and an instructor in it, and the fuselage was torn out down here by the tail wheel. And they said that they had been practicing forced landings, which is we always did that with our students. At any time, in every dual flight, we would, at some point, we would close the throttle and say forced landing. The student was supposed to have had in mind some place where he could land the airplane. He had to know the wind direction and know which way to land. He had to watch and see if there was smoke, or it's easy around here because there's water on lakes and there's cows. You can always tell which way the wind is blowing by the way the cow is grazing. They had their tail into the wind. So anyhow, they had been practicing forced landings, but as the plane glided down, the engine cooled off to the point where when they added the throttle to finally go around and not land, the engine hesitated. But it finally caught. But when it did catch, they had lost so much altitude that they clipped the top of a pine tree on the way out. Well, they were glad that it ended up so successful. However, when the airplane was taken into the shop that night for repairs, back in this damaged part of the airplane, they found a cow's horn. The next morning, when we went into our ready room, one of our instructors was a commercial artist. And in colored chalk was a beautiful pine tree with a cow grazing in the top. So, but the town was glad to have us. We were glad to do it. And I don't look at myself as a hero or anything. I just did what everybody else was doing to get things over as quickly as possible. And many of the instructors found out that there was a place where it didn't snow all year round, or a lot, and they made their home in Lakeland. So I feel honored to have been asked to tell mine, but I don't feel like a hero. I just feel like I was just one of the ones that did whatever needed to be done when it needed to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Lon. Thank you, my friend. I think we have a little presentation for Lon here. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Gary. I'd like to ask Commissioner Selvidge and Commissioner Melissa if they've come up here and joined me up here with Mr. Cooper. There's some folks that because of who they are and what they represent, capture a special place in our hearts. And when that happens, we like to award them something. I have here for Mr. Cooper a Key to the City lapel pin. Mr. Cooper, I hope that every time you wear this pin or you see it, you'll remember today, you'll remember all these veterans, you'll remember the fact that you were appreciated and it was made special because you were here today. So let's give Mr. Cooper a big hand for his presentation.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
I know they want to congratulate you.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you for service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things before we wrap up. First of all, there's a young man here today who just got back from Afghanistan last night. And let's give him a welcome. If you'd raise his hand back here. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Now, you see all these Model A's lined up back here. All you World War II veterans that stood up, you'll get to ride in a parade in one of those Model A's, okay? Thanks to the Model A Club. And not only that, but they're going to take you to Golden Corral for lunch, okay? Thanks to the Model A Club. Marcus, where are you? Marcus? There he is, right here. Stand up, Marcus. Marcus and the Model A Club is going to, and they'll get you back here, or your family can pick up your car and meet you, or however you want to arrange it. But when we leave here, find you a vehicle, they'll help you, and get in it for the parade, okay? For those of you in the parade, if you need a ride back here, this bus will be available to bring you back. Okay, it'll be down at Munn Park, and it won't leave without you. So if you need a ride back, the bus will bring you back. There's a few folks I want to just express appreciation to. First of all, the Florida Southern ROTC Color Guard. We appreciate them being here. We appreciate all the JROTC units that are here today. We appreciate Mark Huntington, who every year plays for us. He played Call to Colors, and he'll also play taps in a bit. Kristen Brock, we're glad to have her participate. The Sea Cadets were out here early to help set up the chairs. The young people were here to help. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, you'll see, have been a big help. We appreciate all of the assistance to put this on. And now, if you would, stand for the benediction. You'll hear a firing salute and taps, and then the retiring of the colors. Thank you all for being here, and have a great Veterans Day.
Eternal Father, for we're greatly appreciative to our nation for setting aside a day each and every year. But what's more important, we ask of our beloved nation that our nation would recognize and realize and continue to honor and remember our veterans 365 days a year as they deliberate concerning budgets pertaining to our veterans. May they be reminded of the sacrifice and the dedication and contribution made so willingly by our veterans. We pray that we will remember those who are homeless, those who are in desperate need of medical help, as we honor our veterans as well. We covered your blessings for all events and activities dedicated to honor our veterans throughout this day. It is in your honor name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Honor guard, 10, right, forward, arm, right.